The message hit my phone at 3:47 a.m., jolting me awake in my cramped Hartford apartment. Dad, I'm getting married next month. Dean's walking me down the aisle since you weren't around. Just like that, my daughter Aria had delivered the final knife twist to what was left of my heart. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. I'm Elliot Granger, 52 years old, and I fix hydraulic systems for a living. Not glamorous, but it pays the bills and keeps my hands busy. 3 years ago, my wife Paige decided she preferred her colleague Dean Holloway over me. What really stung wasn't just losing her. It was watching my 22-year-old daughter choose them over me, calling Dean Dad like I never existed. Now they wanted me to watch another man walk my little girl down the aisle. Like hell, I muttered, reaching for my phone to call the one person who'd stuck by me through this mess. Rowan Pierce speaking. My best friend's gravelly voice answered on the second ring. It's Elliot. Aria's getting married, and guess who's playing father of the bride? Dean Holloway, that sanctimonious piece of garbage. Rowan had been a cop for 20 years before becoming a financial investigator. He knew everyone's dirty laundry in our hometown of Millbrook, Massachusetts. You coming back for the wedding? I'm thinking about it. Good, because I've been digging into your replacement, and let me tell you, St. Dean isn't so saintly. Meet me at the Rusty Anchor tomorrow night. I've got something to show you. The drive from Hartford to Millbrook took 2 hours through winding New England back roads. The town looked exactly the same. Old brick mill buildings, tree-lined streets, and the kind of small-town charm that hid plenty of secrets. The Rusty Anchor sat on Main Street, a dive bar that served as the town's unofficial gossip headquarters. Rowan was waiting in our usual booth, a manila envelope sitting between 2 beers. At 54, he looked like Central Casting's idea of an ex-cop. Gray hair, weathered face, and eyes that missed nothing. You look like hell, Elliot. Thanks for the pep talk. I slid into the booth and grabbed my beer. What's in the envelope? Insurance policy. See, I've been keeping tabs on Dean since he started sniffing around Paige. Guy's got expensive tastes for a school administrator. Before he could elaborate, the bar's front door opened, and in walked the happy couple. Paige looked exactly the same. Blonde hair perfectly styled, that practiced smile she wore to parent-teacher conferences. Dean strutted beside her, tall and confident, his arm possessively around her waist. Well, well, Rowan murmured. Look who decided to make an appearance. Paige spotted me immediately. For just a second, her mask slipped, and I saw something that looked like panic flash across her face. Then she recovered, whispering something to Dean, who turned to stare at me with obvious irritation. She looks nervous, I observed. She should be. Rowan tapped the envelope. Your ex-wife's been living beyond her means, and her boyfriend's been helping himself to other people's money to fund their lifestyle. What kind of other people's money? The kind that belongs to your daughter. That got my attention. Explain. Credit cards opened in Aria's name, loans against Paige's retirement fund that somehow got diverted. Dean's got his fingers in several pies, and they're all starting to burn. Rowan leaned forward. Question is, what do you want to do about it? I watched Paige and Dean order drinks at the bar, playing the perfect couple for their audience. Dean laughed too loudly at something the bartender said, while Paige kept glancing nervously in our direction. I want my life back, I said quietly. But since that's not happening, I'll settle for making sure they can't keep destroying what's left of it. Now you're talking. Rowan pushed the envelope across the table. Take a look when you get home. Tomorrow, we start evening the score. The next morning, I drove past my old house, now Paige's perfect suburban showcase. The yard was immaculate, the windows gleamed, and a shiny new BMW sat in the driveway next to Dean's Mustang. It looked like a magazine spread, all surface and no soul. I parked down the street and walked around back, using muscle memory to navigate the yard I'd maintained for 15 years. The basement workshop window was still loose. I'd been meaning to fix it before Paige kicked me out. The basement felt like a tomb. My old workbench sat covered in dust, surrounded by boxes of Christmas decorations and forgotten memories. In the corner, I found what I was looking for, a file box labeled Important Papers in Paige's neat handwriting. Inside were bank statements, loan documents, and credit card applications. Everything Rowan had told me was true, but seeing it in black and white made me freeze. They'd opened 3 credit cards in Aria's name, maxing them out on furniture, vacations, and Dean's expensive toys. Find what you're looking for? I spun around to find Dean standing at the bottom of the stairs, his face twisted with anger. Just visiting memory lane, I said, standing slowly. Dean had 4 inches on me, but I'd been doing physical work my whole life while he pushed papers. You need to leave. This is Paige's house now. Funny, I don't see her name on the mortgage papers. I held up one of the documents. But I do see Aria's signature on a lot of things she never signed. Dean's face went pale. I don't know what you're talking about. Sure you don't. I stepped closer. Tell me, Dean, does Aria know you've been using her credit to fund your midlife crisis, or does she still think you're the wonderful father figure who saved her from her dad? You're crazy. But his voice wavered. Maybe, but I'm not stupid, and I'm definitely not going away. I moved toward the stairs, forcing him to back up. You wanted to be the man of this house? Congratulations. Now you get to deal with all the problems that come with it. Dean tried to block my path, puffing up his chest like a peacock. Stay away from my family. Your family, I laughed, the sound echoing off the basement walls. Dean, you're nothing but a substitute, a warm body filling a space until something better comes along. And trust me, something better always comes along. He swung at me then, a wild haymaker that telegraphed itself from a mile away. I sidestepped easily, letting him stumble past me into a stack of storage boxes. Careful there, champ. Wouldn't want you to hurt yourself before the wedding. Dean scrambled to his feet, his face red with embarrassment and rage. This isn't over. You're absolutely right about that. After he stormed upstairs, I took my time exploring the rest of the basement. Behind a row of fake books, Paige's attempt at decoration, I found a USB drive taped inside a hollow spine. The label read Insurance in Dean's handwriting. Interesting. My phone buzzed with a text from Rowan. Meet me at the diner. It's worse than we thought. The Millbrook diner sat across from the town hall where Aria's wedding would take place in 2 days. Rowan had claimed a corner booth and was already working on his second cup of coffee when I arrived. You look pleased with yourself, he observed. Just had a heart-to-heart with Dean in my old basement. Found this. I slid the USB drive across the table. Rowan's eyebrows shot up. Insurance policy? That's what the label says. Haven't looked at it yet. Well, let's see what our boy's been hiding. Rowan pulled out his laptop and plugged in the drive. What we found was a treasure trove of financial records, email correspondence, and voice memos. Dean had been systematically draining Paige's accounts while building a nest egg in offshore accounts. The voice memos were particularly damning, recordings of phone calls where he bragged about manipulating that stupid teacher and her bratty daughter. This snake, Rowan muttered, scrolling through the files. He's got accounts in 3 different countries and enough money stashed away to disappear tomorrow if he wanted to. But he won't disappear, I said, studying the screen. He's too arrogant. He thinks he's untouchable. So what's the play? I thought about Aria, about the way she'd looked at me with such disappointment the last time we spoke. About Paige, who'd thrown away 25 years of marriage for a man who saw her as nothing but a meal ticket. The wedding rehearsal is tonight. Half the town will be there, including all of Paige's teacher friends and Dean's colleagues from the school district. Public humiliation? The most public kind. I smiled, feeling something cold and determined settle in my chest. They want to parade their perfect life in front of everyone. Let's give them a show they'll never forget. The town hall looked like something from a Norman Rockwell painting, all red brick and white columns. Cars filled the parking lot as guests arrived for the rehearsal dinner. I waited until everyone was inside before making my entrance. The main hall buzzed with conversation and laughter. Paige held court near the head table, radiant in a blue dress that probably cost more than my monthly rent. Dean worked the room like a politician, shaking hands and accepting congratulations on his upcoming stepfather status. Aria stood near the altar in her rehearsal dress, looking beautiful and nervous. For a moment, my resolve wavered. She was still my little girl, even if she didn't want me to be her father anymore. Then I saw Dean put his arm around her shoulders, saw her lean into him with trust and affection, and my heart hardened again. Rowan appeared at my elbow, carrying a fresh manila envelope. You sure about this? They made their choice. Now they live with the consequences. I walked straight to Paige, ignoring the surprised murmurs that followed in my wake. She saw me coming, and her face went through a series of expressions: shock, fear, and finally, desperate anger. Elliot, what are you doing here? This is a private event? Relax, Paige. I'm not here to cause trouble. Just wanted to deliver a wedding gift. I nodded to Rowan, who stepped forward and handed her the envelope with a theatrical bow. Congratulations on your upcoming nuptials. I think you'll find this very illuminating. Paige's hands shook as she tore open the envelope. Her face went white as she read the first page, then red as she flipped through the bank statements and loan documents. What is this? She whispered. Your financial records, Rowan announced loudly enough for nearby guests to hear. Fascinating reading, especially the part about the Costa Rican bank accounts. Dean materialized beside Paige, his politician's smile faltering as he saw the papers. This is ridiculous. You can't just... Can't just what? I interrupted. Expose the truth? Show everyone what their pillar of the community has really been doing with their tax dollars and his girlfriend's retirement fund. The room had gone quiet, guests straining to hear our conversation. Aria pushed through the crowd, her face confused and frightened. Dad, what's going on? Ask your other dad, I said, not taking my eyes off Dean. Ask him about the credit cards he opened in your name. Ask him about the loans he took against your mother's pension. Ask him about the voice recordings where he calls you a bratty daughter and your mother a stupid teacher. That's a lie, Dean shouted, but his voice cracked. Rowan held up his phone, thumb hovering over the play button. Want to hear it straight from the horse's mouth. You recorded me illegally? Actually, you recorded yourself. We just found your insurance policy. I pulled out the USB drive, holding it up for everyone to see. Amazing what people keep on their computers these days. Paige was crying now, mascara running down her cheeks as she stared at the financial documents. Dean, tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't steal from Aria. But Dean was already backing toward the exit, his face the color of ash. I stepped sideways, blocking his path. Leaving so soon? But you're the guest of honor, the father figure, the man who was going to walk my daughter down the aisle. Get out of my way, Elliot. Or what? You'll take a swing at me like you did in the basement yesterday? I raised my voice so everyone could hear. Tell me, Dean, do you usually threaten the fathers of the brides you're stealing from? That was the final straw. Dean lunged at me with a wild roar, but 3 years of anger and physical labor had prepared me for this moment. I caught his wrist, twisted, and sent him sprawling across the floor in front of the altar. The room erupted in gasps and excited chatter. Someone was filming with their phone. Dean scrambled to his feet, his face a mask of humiliation and rage. This isn't over, he snarled. You keep saying that, but you're wrong. I smiled at him, cold and predatory. It's already over. You just don't know it yet. Dean fled through the side door, leaving Paige sobbing at the head table and Aria staring at me with a mixture of horror and confusion. Is it true? She whispered. Did he really steal from me? I wanted to comfort her, to tell her everything would be okay. But that wasn't my job anymore. I'd been fired from that position 3 years ago. Read the papers, sweetheart. Make up your own mind. I turned and walked out, Rowan falling into step beside me. Behind us, the rehearsal dinner dissolved into chaos and whispered conversations. That was brutal, Rowan said as we reached the parking lot. That was just the opening act. Dean's Mustang sat in the parking lot, gleaming under the streetlights. I walked over and examined it, noting the custom paint job and expensive modifications. Nice car, I mused. Probably cost more than most people make in 6 months. Wonder how a school administrator affords something like this. Probably the same way he affords that Rolex and those Italian suits, Rowan replied. You thinking what I'm thinking? I'm thinking Dean's about to have a very bad night. We followed Dean's Mustang at a distance as he drove through town, eventually pulling into the driveway of a modest ranch house on Elm Street. His wife's car wasn't in the driveway, probably at her sister's house like she was most weekends lately. Dean stumbled out of his car and fumbled with his keys, clearly rattled by the evening's events. He disappeared into his garage, and lights came on inside. What do you think he's doing? Rowan asked. Damage control. Probably destroying evidence or trying to move money around. I checked my watch. Give him 10 minutes, then we make our move. We crept around to the back of the house and peered through the garage window. Dean was frantically shredding papers and deleting files from a laptop. Boxes of documents sat open on his workbench, and a small safe stood open in the corner. Busy night? I murmured. Should we call the cops? Not yet. I want to have a conversation with Dean first. The side door to the garage was unlocked, small-town trust working in our favor. We slipped inside just as Dean was feeding another stack of papers into a cross-cut shredder. Working late, Dean? He spun around, his face going white when he saw us. You can't be here. This is breaking and entering. The door was open, Rowan said mildly. We were just being neighborly, checking to make sure you were okay. You seemed upset when you left the rehearsal. Get out. Get out right now, or I'm calling the police. Go ahead, I said, pulling out my phone. I'm sure they'd love to see what you're destroying, especially Detective Morrison. You remember him, right? He's very interested in financial crimes these days. Dean's hand froze over the shredder. What do you want? Honesty, confession, maybe a little justice. I stepped closer, and he backed against his workbench. You stole my family, Dean. Turned my wife against me, poisoned my daughter's mind, and made me the villain in my own life story. But that wasn't enough, was it? You had to steal their money too. I never... Don't. My voice was quiet. Don't lie to me anymore. We have the records. We have the recordings. We have everything. Dean's composure finally cracked completely. It wasn't supposed to happen like this. The investments were supposed to pay off. I was going to put everything back before anyone noticed. But they didn't pay off, did they? So you kept stealing, kept lying, kept playing the hero while you robbed them blind. I love Paige. I love Aria. Everything I did was for them. You love their money. You love the respect and admiration they gave you. But them? The actual people. I shook my head. You called Aria a brat and Paige a fool. We have it on tape, remember? Rowan was recording everything on his phone, making sure to capture Dean's tearful confession. This would be evidence later, when the lawyers and investigators got involved. Please, Dean begged. I'll pay it back. All of it. Just give me time. Time? I laughed, the sound echoing off the garage walls. You've had 3 years to come clean. 3 years to do the right thing. Instead, you kept digging the hole deeper. I looked around the garage, taking in the expensive tools, the classic car parts, the vintage motorcycle in the corner, all bought with stolen money. Nice setup you've got here. Very impressive. Too bad you won't be enjoying it much longer. I picked up a crowbar from his workbench and hefted it thoughtfully. Dean's eyes went wide with terror. Elliot, don't do anything stupid. Relax, Dean. I'm not going to hurt you. That would make me just like you, a criminal. I smiled at him, cold and predatory. But your toys? Well, they're fair game. The crowbar made a satisfying crash as it connected with the vintage motorcycle's gas tank. Dean screamed like I'd hit him instead of his bike. Stop, please, that's worth $15,000. Was worth $15,000. Now it's worth whatever scrap metal goes for these days. I moved to his tool chest, an expensive German model that probably cost more than my car. This looks nice too. I'll confess. I'll tell everyone what I did. Just stop. Oh, you'll confess anyway. The difference is whether you do it with dignity or as a broken man who lost everything. I raised the crowbar again. Your choice. Dean collapsed onto his knees, sobbing. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I never meant for it to go this far. But it did go this far. And now we're here, in your garage, with your life falling apart around you. I set down the crowbar and knelt beside him. Tell me, Dean, was it worth it? Was the money, the respect, the perfect family worth destroying real people's lives? He couldn't answer through his tears. I stood up and nodded to Rowan, who stopped recording. Clean yourself up, Dean. Tomorrow's the wedding, and you've got some explaining to do. The wedding's canceled. After tonight, there's no way. Oh, but there is a way. See, Aria's been planning this day for months. Her friends are flying in, the flowers are ordered, the hall is decorated. She's going to have her wedding day one way or another. I smiled at him one last time. The question is whether you'll be there to see it. We left Dean sobbing in his ruined garage and drove back to the Rusty Anchor for a nightcap. The bar was buzzing with gossip about the rehearsal dinner disaster. Everyone wanted to know what had really happened, but Rowan and I just smiled and ordered another round. My phone buzzed with a text from Aria. Dad, we need to talk. Can you meet me for breakfast? For the first time in 3 years, she'd called me Dad without any qualifiers or hesitation. Looks like the wedding's still on, I told Rowan. Think she'll go through with it after everything that's come out? Aria's stronger than her mother. She'll do what's right. I raised my beer in a mock toast. To family. The real kind, not the substitute version. To justice served cold. And to Dean Holloway, who's about to learn that actions have consequences. The wedding day dawned gray and drizzling, matching my mood perfectly. I'd spent the night in a cheap motel, staring at the ceiling and thinking about everything that had led to this moment. In a few hours, my daughter would either forgive me or cut me out of her life forever. I was betting on forgiveness, but I'd been wrong about family before. The town hall looked different in daylight, less romantic and more like what it was, a government building pressed into service for celebrations. Cars were already arriving, guests hurrying through the rain with their umbrellas and wedding gifts. I parked across the street and watched the chaos unfold. Aria arrived in a white limousine, her wedding dress protected by plastic garment bags. She looked beautiful and determined, every inch her mother's daughter. Paige came next, looking haggard despite her careful makeup. She'd aged 10 years overnight, the stress and humiliation taking their toll. She kept glancing around nervously, probably wondering if Dean would show up. He did, eventually, pulling into the parking lot in his battered Mustang. Someone had keyed the side panels overnight, and one of the tires looked soft. Dean himself looked worse than his car. unshaven, wrinkled suit, the confident swagger completely gone. My phone rang. Aria's name appeared on the screen. "Dad, are you here?" "Across the street. Didn't want to cause any more drama." "Can you come over? I need to talk to you before the ceremony." "Are you sure? Yesterday was pretty intense." "I'm sure. Please, Dad. I need you here." I hung up and walked across the street, ignoring the stares and whispers from the arriving guests. Inside the town hall, Aria waited in a small side room that served as the bridal suite. She looked stunning in her wedding dress, but her eyes were red from crying. "You look beautiful, sweetheart." "Thank you." She fidgeted with her bouquet. "I read everything, all the papers, all the evidence. I listened to the recordings. I'm sorry you had to hear that. Are you? Because part of me thinks you enjoyed destroying my perfect life." Her words stung, but I couldn't deny the truth in them. Maybe I did enjoy it a little, but not because I wanted to hurt you, because I wanted you to see the truth about the man you'd chosen over your real father. He stole from me, from Mom, from the school district. Tears ran down her cheeks, ruining her makeup. How could I have been so blind? Because you wanted to believe in him? Because he told you what you wanted to hear, and I was too proud to fight for you? I reached out and touched her face gently. That's on me, not you. I said such horrible things to you. I chose him over you. You chose what looked like a better option. I can't blame you for that. But I can blame myself. She looked up at me with desperate eyes. Can you forgive me, Dad? Can we try to fix this? Before I could answer, the door burst open and Dean stumbled in, his face wild with desperation and fury. Aria, thank God. We need to talk, privately. Get out, I said quietly. You're not welcome here. This is my stepdaughter's wedding. I have every right. You have no rights here. Aria's voice was cold, cutting. Not after what you did. Not after what I heard you say about me. Dean's face crumpled. I was angry. I didn't mean those things. You have to believe me. I love you like my own daughter. Your own daughter. I stepped between them. Dean, you don't have a daughter. You don't have a family. You don't have anything except the criminal charges that are coming your way. I can explain everything. The money was just borrowed. I was going to pay it all back. With what? Rowan's voice came from the doorway. He stepped into the room carrying another manila envelope, this one thick with official-looking documents. Your accounts are frozen, your assets are seized, and your wife filed for divorce this morning. Dean staggered like he'd been physically hit. Margot, but she doesn't know. She knows everything. Turns out she's been working with me for the past month, gathering evidence. Rowan smiled coldly. Funny thing about betrayal, Dean. It's contagious. That's impossible. Margot Holloway would like a word with you. A woman appeared in the doorway, mid-40s, brown hair, wearing a simple black dress that looked like mourning clothes. Dean's wife looked nothing like the meek, submissive woman I'd imagined. Her eyes burned with cold fury. Hello, darling, she said to Dean. Enjoying your special day? Margot, what are you doing here? Watching your world burn down, just like you burned down mine. She stepped into the room, and Dean backed away from her like she was radioactive. Did you really think I didn't know? The late nights, the secret phone calls, the money disappearing from our accounts? I can explain. Oh, you already explained. To the FBI, to the state police, to the school board, and to everyone else who needed to hear your confession. She held up her own phone. Amazing what people will say when they think they're talking to their lawyer. Dean went white. You recorded me? Just like you recorded yourself. Funny how that works. Margot turned to Aria, her expression softening slightly. I'm sorry, honey. I know you cared about him, but he's not who either of us thought he was. I know, Aria whispered. I'm sorry, too. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. Don't apologize for trusting someone. Apologize for staying blind when the truth was right in front of you. Margot looked back at Dean with disgust. Get out, before I have you arrested right here in front of everyone. Dean looked around the room desperately, seeking some ally, some escape route. But there was nowhere to run, and no one left to help him. This isn't over, he said, but the words came out weak and pathetic. Yes, it is. I stepped closer to him, close enough that only he could hear my next words. It's over, and you lost. You lost everything. The money, the respect, the family, the future. You're going to spend the next few years in court, and probably the few after that in prison. And when you get out, you'll be a broke, bitter old man with nothing left but memories of the life you threw away. Dean's face twisted with rage and desperation. You destroyed my life. No, Dean, you destroyed your own life. I just made sure everyone else could see the wreckage. He lunged at me one last time, but 3 days of stress and sleepless nights had taken their toll. I caught his wrists easily and held him at arm's length while he struggled pathetically. "Rowan, would you mind escorting Mr. Holloway to his car? I think he's overstayed his welcome." "My pleasure." Rowan and 2 other men, wedding guests who'd been drawn by the commotion, took Dean by the arms and marched him toward the exit. His protests and threats echoed down the hallway until the front door slammed shut. "Is it really over?" Aria asked quietly. "The Dean chapter is over, but the rest of your life is just beginning." I looked at my daughter, beautiful in her wedding dress, finally seeing me clearly for the first time in years. "The question is, what do you want that life to look like?" "I want my real dad to walk me down the aisle. Even after everything that's happened? Even knowing what kind of man I can be when I'm pushed too far? Especially then." She smiled through her tears. "You fought for me, Dad. Even when I didn't want you to. Even when I chose someone else over you, you never gave up." "I couldn't give up. You're my daughter. My real daughter, not some substitute or replacement." I offered her my arm. "Ready to get married?" "Ready." We walked out of the bridal suite together, past the whispered conversations and shocked stares of the wedding guests. At the back of the main hall, Aria's fiancé waited at the altar with his groomsmen, looking nervous but determined. The wedding march began, and I walked my daughter down the aisle for what I thought would never happen. Paige sat in the front row, crying quietly into a tissue. She looked up as we passed, and for just a moment, I saw the woman I'd fallen in love with 25 years ago, but that woman was gone, replaced by someone who'd made choices I couldn't forgive or forget. At the altar, I placed Aria's hand in her fiancé's and stepped back. The ceremony was beautiful, traditional, everything a wedding should be. When the minister pronounced them husband and wife, the applause was thunderous. During the reception, I sat at a table in the back, watching my daughter dance with her new husband. She looked happy, genuinely happy, for the first time in years. Rowan joined me, carrying 2 beers and wearing a satisfied smile. "Hell of a weekend," he said. "Hell of a 3 years." I raised my beer in a toast. To justice served. To family restored. And to Dean Holloway, wherever he is right now, learning that some people fight back. We drank to that, watching the celebration continue around us. Later, much later, as the reception was winding down, Aria came over to our table. "Dad, I know I can't take back the last 3 years. I know I hurt you, and I'm sorry. You were protecting yourself and your mother. I understand that. But I want to try to fix things between us, if you're willing." I looked at my daughter, no longer the confused, angry young woman who'd chosen Dean over me, but a married adult ready to build her own life on her own terms. "I'm willing, but it won't be easy. There's a lot of hurt on both sides." "I know, but we're family. Real family. That has to count for something. It counts for everything." She hugged me then, and for the first time in 3 years, it felt like my daughter was really there with me. As the evening wound down and the guests began to leave, I found myself alone in the parking lot, looking up at the stars through the clearing clouds. My phone buzzed with a text message from an unknown number. "This isn't over. You destroyed my life, and I'll destroy yours. Watch your back." I showed the message to Rowan, who was walking me to my car. "Think he means it?" "Dean? He's finished. Broken. He might make some noise for a while, but he's got bigger problems than revenge fantasies." I deleted the message without responding. Besides, what's he going to do? He's lost everything that mattered to him, and he did it to himself. Still, maybe you should be careful for a while. I've been careful for 3 years. I'm tired of being careful. I got in my car and rolled down the window. Dean had his chance to be the better man. He chose to be a thief and a liar instead. Now he gets to live with the consequences. And you? What are you going to do now? Go home, go back to work, try to rebuild a relationship with my daughter. I started the engine. Live my life instead of just surviving it. Sounds like a plan. I drove away from Millbrook that night feeling lighter than I had in years. Dean was finished, Aria was back in my life, and Paige would have to face the consequences of her choices without her substitute husband to hide behind. It wasn't the ending I'd imagined when this all started, but it was the ending they'd earned, and sometimes that's the best justice you can hope for.